each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge, it's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter-psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
So you've heard me do readings, you pretty much know the material. You have the Akashic record of this world and 20,000 other worlds open to you. What questions do you have?
Well, I've probably got 2 hours of questions, but I was hoping we could start today with kind of old-fashioned, do a stream read for Lawrence, Kansas, this town, and just jump into me, paint my soul's trajectory across the dimensions and time streams, and let me know what you see.
Awesome. I love it that you came up with the old-fashioned stream read. All right. So this is directed to Lawrence, Kansas, to Eric and all of those that are in his 1 degree of separation. Welcome to this moment of infinity, when infinity is an understanding of the shaman's death at hand. The shaman's death at hand is to let go of the past, present, and future, and to just be one inside your own shell of a soul, and understand that you are a reflection of many other versions of light, here in the now, ready to experience the now. In the now comes the term sovereignty, and sovereignty is a form of spiritual technology that must be understood with tactile understanding. In the tactile understanding, we return to the cradle board of life, where we honor the 7 future generations who are not in tactile feeling yet. By honoring them, by giving them space, when we have our tactile feeling of love and all of those other wonderful things that come with it, we get a whole new layer to our experience. We get connected to our tactile ancestors, and we have visitations from in the past where we lived with them or did sacred ceremonies with them, and they come to us with photonic light that is DNA memories, memories that we don't even remember that we have, and just by them reminding us of it, we get to unpack the cipher of what those memories are. So being offered to you and everyone in Lawrence, Kansas, are memories and memories from ancient shamans past. On every hill and every dale in every part of the land, there has been a fire by a shaman over the last 1,000,000 years. And each and every one of those fires still is alive today. And you just simply must acknowledge it and understand that it's waiting to offer you, your own reflection of yourself, so that the shaman's death is letting go of the system of the old, so the new system of the now, connected to the land, is what you are, not the reflection of the past who has lived in the ceremonial fires before, but you creating the ceremonial fire of now, being unified in every form. Look to the sky and understand that the smoke that you create with the fires changes that world. Those smoke beings are your elementals of prayer that go to the great mystery and to the great universe and help us talk to our star brothers and sisters. So create great clouds of smoke and reprogram those skies so our brothers and sisters can appear in your smoke pillars. Because now is the time to light the fires of passion and spontaneity all over the universe. That's what I got for Lawrence, Kansas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a different set of questions?
Sure, anything you want.
How do we maximize our lifespan, from the time that we're born to the time that we die in this incarnation, and our health span, the time that we are free of injury and illness and even degradation, and our fit span, our ability to go and do anything athletically that we want to or that anyone invites us to do?
I think that first process is reintroduction to the infinite being that you were in the fetus in mother's womb, and then a reintroduction to the baby that took the first breath, and then learning your story, which I call telling your story to the fire, which is on the bigger scale, know thyself. And when knows thyself, we have the greater ability to make choices in the now. So there are many, many people out there that don't remember their 8th grade birthday or what they did when they're 13. What I tell people to do is to try to remember as much as possible, to use your natural genius ability to predict what you would be doing when you're 13, 15, 19, 24, 36, and to recall as much of that as possible. So that is in our fullness of knowingness. So the next layer of expansion has the fullness of our potential in it, which is all of the goals we've created since we were the fetus in the mother's womb. Reintroduction to that infinite process within us allows us to have a greater scale of understanding of how the reality is trying to share synchronicities with us. Does that answer your question?
So how do you reclaim your free will?
First of all, it requires going inside and healing parts of yourself. And Michael and Peter talk about that frequently. You have to be willing to look at yourself and to identify that there are parts of yourself that no longer apply to the adult you. And you have to realize, well, the type of damage that your innocent inner child did that shaped your life, as well as the good and the bad. And I commonly call this talking to the fire. I'm a fire shaman and a dream interpreter. When I function in the dream world, I'm in the North Pole and the South Pole at the same time. The North Pole is literally where the dream worlds exist, and the South Pole is where the astral world exists, where the new souls that are coming in here to plan their incarnation, they exist in the South Pole, and then they live through us vicariously to experience what the matrix world is like so that they can figure out what soul family they want to be in. Reclaiming your free will is about literally understanding the matrix is trying to define you through propaganda of what type of co-creating manifestor spirit you're going to be, and you must disconnect from that through meditation, through self-healing, through ascended mastery courses, and begin the process of unplugging from this muddy world until you understand that this world has several levels layered on top of it and layered below it, and that your perception is the key to understanding the matrix as what is the defining propaganda of all these multidimensional beings that takes place between 2011 and 2014.
Now, the propaganda is being perpetuated at ground level in 3D reality by the media machine which drives our thought.
Yep.
Particularly in the Western world. What about the Eastern world, where the Western media is not so prevalent?
Well, it's controlled by a different media source, and it uses their culture against them. Example, in China, they're extremely big on ancestor spirits, but if you watch Chinese TV, they actually degrade the ancestor spirit concept so that people don't adhere to it anymore. And there's a huge, huge following of Christianity in China that was brought there on purpose so that would separate them from their ancestor spirits.
Now, if it's at all possible, and you feel a lot of issues coming up, one very powerful way of helping your child is making a fire if it's at all possible. Making a fire inside your fireplace if you can't do it outside, making a fire outside, and just basically you can throw a lot into the fire, you can write a lot of things down, and you can give that to the fire. If you want, which is also very powerful, is literally sitting by the fire with your children, grab a couple of marshmallows.
Yeah.
And then
Bond with them.
Bond with them, but then start to use the element and the alchemy of the fire. Start talking with the fire, because you'll be amazed when you're sitting with the fire with those natural elements and you begin a heart open bonded space. You'd be amazed that the healing and the clearing that just happens automatically with that element and that shared bond of love. It's quite magical. And this is spiritual alchemy. This is a very simple thing that a parent can do. And it will be amazed at the changes in the children once they are working with the elements, if that's at all possible, or even just maybe going on a camping trip and then doing it there, doing that healing there, and then taking that memory back with you. And then when you see stress times, just focus again on that fire. Bring that frequency forth, because everything is still happening simultaneously.
So, Anissa, go on and go ahead and unmute yourself, and we're going to have some fun.
I'm so sorry about that, you guys.
It is okay. We call those on-air gremlins.
Oh, so sorry. And that was so fascinating with Brian and with Jacob both. So I really appreciated listening to that. Yeah, hi. Hi, everybody.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm here in Portugal right now. And I wrote Andrew when he first offered on-air readings again, because I had spoken with him last fall and I was interested in following up on our conversation. And maybe Jacob is feeling this way this morning or tonight, your time, that it's a lot of information to take in, and it does take some time to integrate. And so that's what I've been doing over the last months. And that's where I am right now.
Okay, so you know how this works. Do you want to go right into asking the questions, or do you have something else that you would like to do?
No, I could go ahead and ask a question.
Sure.
I'd like to expand a little bit on my own soul's journey, and then I have a more general question that might be of help or of interest to some of your other listeners.
Okay.
Okay. Well, first of all, we discussed my history, my past, and you talked about some homeworlds that I had lived in and originated from, and I was just wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about those places.
In the journey that you've taken since that reading to this moment, what have you done to find those places?
Well, I don't know if it's been on a conscious level, but I feel like I've received some insights. And one of the most poignant moments I had was, and it's something maybe you could tell me if I'm onto something here. Was a moment of insight about understanding that. For some of us who are pretty empathic and giving, that can be pathologized here. And through therapy and self-work, I think we're often taught, to build up barriers, get boundaries, find discernment. And that was definitely part of my journey here. But I had a really special kind of insight moment several months ago where I came to understand that it's not like that everywhere. And there are places where people give of themselves and give of themselves constantly, but everyone is doing that, so everyone's needs are met. And I was just wondering if that's a little bit of a hint as to the type of, as to my origins, maybe.
Well, what I'm asking is, what have you done to connect to those places? Have you done ceremony?
Yeah.
Have you done soul journeying? Have you done sun gazing and star gazing?
All of those things, yes. That was an important part of our conversation, Andrew.
Exactly, I know.
You took me to task on not living a ceremonial life, and by living a ceremonial life, finding more groundedness in my experience, and then finding the power to do what I'm here to do. Yeah. So, and that took a little while to sink into. So, yes, I've been doing all of those things, and I've had some really special moments looking up at the stars and at the sun.
The journey into those moments was your greatest soul's victory. Everything that you've done before is absolutely meaningless now, because we're entering the infinite and we're leaving the finite. We're leaving the hairball permanently. We're leaving the trenches permanently. And for us to come clean with our DNA, to be multidimensional beings, we can no longer have perverted attachments to what is or could have been. the mythical species, the shapeshifters, were removed from our species. And that was the great betrayal you experienced early in your soul, was not being able to be a shapeshifter.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a fundamental rule that just on Earth, you didn't get that in your skin suit at the end. And now that you living this grounded life, the answer is in your DNA. Not just shape-shifting, but your legacy of a multidimensional being that has just left the hair wall, has just taken their first shower and gotten a new shirt and thinking about sleeping in a bed. That's how fresh it is for you. You got to take time and go deep into the next stage of reflection, where this shamanic you who has found the discipline of being disciplined, where the fire meets water and creates steam. For you, that'll be the greatest spiritual locomotion. When you work with the fire, you learn how to work with the smoke. When you work with steam, you are working with water and have an instantaneous access to infinite energy on the quanta and quantum level. And the only limitation you have is your perception of reality. When one is the master of fire and water and create a room of steam, this is not just a sweat lodge concept, but your own creation by hand in which you can go and be in a steam-based environment and have the proper resistance and the understanding of how to bond with that steam that is in your aura. Okay? In your aura. When you bond with the steam in your aura is where you'll be able to flush out tremendous volumes of aura toxins. We all have them. You have quite a bit of toxin still remaining in your gallbladder, in your left breast, in your left lymph node. This is stuff that you've taken from when you're sleeping over the last many years. There's a particular body position you take, and dense energies regularly settle into those areas. And it looks like it comes out the nose when you're dreaming. When I see this type of dense energy coming out of the nose, it's literally the smell of who you were living with and what you were doing at that time was causing a psychic irritation, that your dream energy leaked out your nose and created this dense pool. And I think that's something you're going to really have to take a serious look at removing these dense energies. It's like a glacier. It takes a long time for it to melt away. So left shoulder, bottom of and inside of the left breast, you're going to have to really get in there and start massaging it, and then do equal massage on the other side so that those lymph nodes can really start to create some chelation in the body and really recycle the water that's there, that's stuck in the different fat cell areas or in between the different bursa points in the muscles.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So let's go with your next question. I'm tuning in deeper into the rites of passage that you're going through.
Okay. Well, part of it has to do then with a larger discussion about soul trauma and the impact of timeline genocide on our souls' histories, on our journeys. I think you've referred to this as soul sickness.
Soul shock, soul sickness, post-traumatic soul disorder.
Yeah.
It comes on many names, and everyone connects to it viscerally in a different way. And so many of our population suffer from it. We are simultaneously existing on 4 paradox timelines, and we're on the 5th. People get confused about that, but what timeline genocide is they come in and they erase your ancestors. They erase your elemental connection to the planet, and they erase the people, your ability to have an incarnation grid. You have no connection to the planet, and there's no astral world. Never existed. And that planet is barren. And that is a shock to us because we are sharing a sovereign reality with us, and the planet was unable to protect even us.
Yeah.
That is the betrayal level. That the universe, even the universal beings, did not stop this travesty because we had just gone from non-free will to free will. We started with this judgment, and this judgment led us to do more timeline genocides after we had gotten our planet, our timeline back, and finished the first creational event again after we uncreated the event. And all the prime creators of the universe settled on Earth and say, we better resolve this quick because something else is going to happen. And just as everything was done, we did it a second time, a third time. And then the prime creators got really, really, really angry and showed they had free will too. Timeline genocide is something that affects people on the highest level and the lowest level. Soul shock and soul trauma is when us micro beings are on a world and that world goes through the end of times, whatever format it is, from orbital bombardment, earthquakes, asteroids, plague, war, spiritual invasion, all of that. That's an individual shock and trauma. And the vast majority of the people in our world have soul shock, soul trauma, about 75%. Have it at such a high degree because they were here on the planet experiencing the chaos of destruction and the loss of unity and heart, the disconnection from the planet and the reconnection into vengeance and anger, and seeing the children of the children of the children of the children be redirected into vicious beings of vengeance, parading as beings of light. That's what timeline genocide, that's what soul shock is about. It's about that all being in your mind, and you have no way to say it anything other than call it the shadow. And we as human beings live with the shadow, and we must learn to speak with it and talk with it and make it a part of us, but never give power to it. For it is what we needed to survive in timeline genocide, and it is something that we created because we knew we had to make it to the end so that we could save countless trillions of others, because 500 trillion of us volunteered via soul contract to be in unawareness and resolve karma for all the uncreational events we created in unity. Soul shock at the highest level is what those 500 trillion beings had to do to make it down to us, roughly 50 billion that actually made it to the end. That's how many couldn't do it. That's why we are the best of the best of the best in this graduation.
What happened to those who didn't make it?
They became extinct. And this is called the mythic wars, when people could not accept that shape-shifting wasn't going to be allowed. And that's where the dragons, the unicorns, the elves, the dwarves, and everything else you want to call it that doesn't look human, that doesn't have the residual image like we all do now, that is when they had to make a choice to stand up, and that was called the Mahabharata. It has many different forms because it was on all timelines and dimensions, because that's what those beings are, multidimensional beings. And they're taking our multidimensional side away from us. And so many beings live to the very end of a DNA lineage, the very last of the last, no chance for it ever coming back, and it is extinct. When it is extinct, it can no longer extend contracts to the planet, and the planet takes it into its core, hollow earth, and downloads the entire lineage into there, and then makes a infinite sacred space inside there for those beings who want to live in extinction in the center of earth until the timeline graduation comes. And then the graduation timeline can go, and those that are in extinction can resolve their karma or their extinction event at the end. So all the mythics and dragons and unicorns that are in human bodies that wanted to be here at the end, they're here, but they're not in the bodies that they want. And that's how they had to finally deal with the system. And that's why so many aren't here. They chose to stay in the hollow earth, and then when we pass the torch of eldership on, they go into extinction. They chose the end of their soul spark. So they will migrate to another galaxy or universe and start over, but their light body will retain a macro code of everything that they did up until that point.
So it's really not extinction in the big picture.
It's an epoch.
It's an epoch. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And they go all the way to the end until they are a void entity, until their immigration papers is to come back in on an unawareness. They're still choosing karmic resolution. They're not choosing the fullness of free will. They want to be with the flow of the great mystery. They want to be connected to the universe, not in free will. Mm-hmm. That's the other part of the mythics. And it's tough for people to understand, why would they not want to be free-willed? Because they want to help the rest of the universe, and being connected to the divine universal source at all times, in all frequencies, in all ways, and still being a sovereign being yourself, allows for great wonders to happen in this world. And there is a way for free will to interact with those beings, but domination and control prevented us from even creating language so we could work together. Mm-hmm. It took the science fiction and fantasy writers of our days to make sure they had a place in our timeline graduation. Imagine if there weren't fantasy writers out there or sci-fi writers out there, that they had decided in the 1930s to change it.
Right.
Would we be here today? So what other kind of questions do you have?
Well, of course, you just triggered a lot more questions.
As usual.
As usual, that I have about myself. I mean, I really did want to know about my other existences and what those experiences look like. But I can put that on hold. Something that's really, pardon me?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Something that's really been kind of pressing for me is an early call I heard in your Adventures in Reality program. It was from the spring of 2013, and it really resonated. It was a powerful conversation you had with a caller in the Netherlands who had smoked DMT the night before he called in. You, in the reading, explained that the DMT helped facilitate a state of consciousness that he was once able to obtain shamanically. And I think he was he was an Earth founder. It was a great reading, and I've never been able to find it again in the archives. But it stuck with me, and it made me just think about, I think a lot of us consider psychedelics to be part of our consciousness exploration toolkits, and they also seem to be a big part of movements working toward a new paradigm, new ways of living, permaculture, all of those things. The festival I'm at here in Portugal right now is one that's kind of geared toward those growing communities. So I'm just wondering what you can tell us about using those as to facilitate consciousness exploration.
Absolutely, I advise people to consider it.
Okay.
But you have to know what you're doing and the person that you are, and you must understand it must be sacred and not recreational.
Absolutely.
When you take those simple words, and then you realize that you have to be a ceremonial person so you can make something sacred. And when you make that choice, my answer is yes. And people ask me, what is the best to start with? Marijuana. Mm-hmm. And if you're one of those people that doesn't like to smoke it, eat it before you go to sleep. And if you're one of those that says, I can't do that, well, then what can you do? Peyote? Mushrooms? LSD? That's your choice, what you're going to do. And it's you. But if you make it recreational, you will fail. And you will not get what you want. And you may not get something you don't want. it's important to make it sacred and to make it a pilgrimage, so you clean yourself out. If you go into a ceremony with all the junk left in you, where does it go? All over the shamans and all the other people that are around you, because you have no skills or techniques to let go of it. That's why I tell people to tell their story to their fire. It's why I tell people to do ceremony, so that you can do your own energy cleanliness, just like taking a shower or a bath. And it can be quite easy when you become practiced at it and make it a part of your daily life. It's just like sweeping the floor, taking out the trash. It's not that hard to do, but you have to make sure you do it on a regular basis. And pilgrimaging, that's the next thing.
Okay.
All right, so we've got to go ahead and end the show. Anissa, thank you very, very much.
I have a practical question about talking to the fire. I hear you tell a lot of people to do that. A couple of questions. When you say tell your life story, is it as you sit down and you start to do it, is there a certain period of time we're supposed to focus on? Do we start from the beginning? And then I'm trying to figure out where I can go, build a fire outside where it's safe, where I can talk out loud and no one's going to hear me as a woman alone. And I wanted to ask if you can do candles or something else.
Candles aren't enough. Now, if you had a room that had 80 candles in it, and I say 80 because that might be enough, and then you can get those little small candles or find candles like this for people that are looking on the video that are, the Kia candles that burn a long time. That's a lot more expensive than getting a fire. For a single woman that doesn't want to have to worry about people projecting on you sitting next to a fire, you can go get one of those little charcoal barbecue things, and instead of putting charcoal in it, you can put twigs in it, in little sticks and stuff that'll burn, and you can even put charcoal in it. The point is to have a fire that you're adding stuff to that goes through the consumption process. So that's the key mechanics there, is that you're going to be adding more and more to the fire. And where do you start? There's no fixed place to start. I kind of tell people, come with a little timeline. And what is that? Well, how old am I now? Well, what can I remember of the last 2 weeks? What can I remember of the last 2 months? What can I remember of the last 2 years, the last 5 years, the last 8 years? And that's your initial synopsis. That's your cheat notes when you sit next to the fire. Some people, they think they tell their whole story at their first sitting of the fire. No, you're barely scratching at it. This is your chance to count your victories and enjoy them, and to see how different phases of our life where we thought something was a great failure in our life, but we just hadn't finished the learning from it, and it taught us something great about the next layer of life that was coming. And that's the whole purpose of taking this time to tell your story with all truthfulness, and even allowing yourself to do the coloring while you observe yourself telling your victories, your story, your good times, your bad times, so you know what is you and what is not you.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
So, again, there are places that you can go. Do you have a park around you that has like those outdoor cookout things, like next to a pavilion?
Yeah, I'm in Southern California. There's a lot of places I can go.
You can do that.
Yeah.
Just go get some wood and stick it on that little grill and put a burger on it or a hot dog or something, and just sit there. And it's your self cookout.
Okay, I will.
Welcome everyone to a special series by the fire. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to take apart the sacred geometry dream world with fire. Simple fire. Now, I don't encourage anyone to be a pyromaniac in any way, shape, or form. It's to understand the transformative power of fire. So what I'd like for you to think about is to go to a local hardware store or any place that sells birthday candles, those little candles that are about that big, and understand that in there is about 8 minutes of fire, 8 minutes of spark. And you live in an area that may have 40 or 50 smart meters, may have sacred geometry buildings around it, or may have objects and infrastructure that just hold dense energy. With a simple birthday candle that has been empowered with your intention to diffuse sacred geometry and bring unity consciousness in, you have a spark of fire in a moment that creates no-time energy. So I'm going to give you a verbal, out-loud expression of what you can say to your groups of candles multiple times before you go to use them. Greetings, friend candle, that represents in this matrix idea that of a day of birth. I am continuing your process of birth, but I am adding the intention to you that I will be bringing you in a moment of future presence to an area of dense energy that may have sacred geometry buildings or concepts or ancestral karmas attached to it. And my intention is for the flame that you burn in the fraud time that you exist as a burning wax of a candle. I am bringing you all the moments of unity consciousness that I have dreamed of. I am bringing you all of the abundance of nature so no children ever has to go without shoes or food. I bring to you no GMO food. I bring to you no chemtrails. I bring to you the flames of purity. I ask that this fire brings sacred, pathogenic warmth to all spirits that are trapped in the sacred geometry system, so that they may once again see the element of fire and seek the Earth Mother so that they can exit the sacred geometry system and find their true ancestors and no longer be trapped by false light. I bring to you this sacred moment of my heart space, friend candles, that I use in a future moment, so that we can have an agenda, a plan, a strategy, so we can take apart sacred geometry piece by piece and replace each piece with the unity consciousness of all species interacting in equal co-creation. Those are the types of words you can give objects that burn fire. Thank you.
Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the Holy Grail. Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.